Oh, thank you, Lord. Oh, thank you for my home. Oh, thank you for my job. Oh, thank you for my children. God, thank you for my life. Oh, thank you, Lord. I give you all the praise. Thank you for keeping me through danger seen and unseen.
Middle Georgia. Welcome to our Saturday morning power, praise, and prayer lineup. The Greater Elizabeth Missionary Baptist Church of Macon, where Reverend Derek Dumas is the lead servant, every Saturday at 11 a.m. on 980 a.m. WDDO, The Glory. Mabel Randall is on The Glory, 980 a.m. WDDO. Don't miss Mabel Randall every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Don't miss this amazing show only on The Glory, 980 a.m. WDDO. The Easter season is swiftly approaching. Fashion is at the top of your list. Ladies and gentlemen, hand me that bag has you covered. Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Christian Dior, Prada, Chanel, and the designer bling bling to match. I just want to hand you that bag. Men's watches, bracelets, bags, crossbody bags, hats, and more. Call Leah today at 478-461-9162. That's 478-461-9162. Or go to her Facebook page, Leah Sutton, and tell her you heard about it on 980 a.m. WDDO. Calling all churches and pastors to join the Sunday church broadcast. Call Vertice today at 678-800-3976. You'll be heard all over Middle Georgia. Call Vertice now at 678-800-3976. The Glory is 980 a.m. WDDO. You don't ever have to be stranded with a flat tire. Bubba's Mobile Tire and Repair Service, LLC. 24-hour roadside assistance. They service cars, trucks, RVs, tractor trailers, and much more. For your roadside needs, call Bubba's Mobile Tire and Repair at 478-781-7433. And they're located at 3561 Broadway in Macon. And oh yeah, truck parking is coming real soon. So call Bubba right now at 478-781-7433. Bubba's Mobile and Tire Repair, LLC.
I've always wanted to be an attorney because I truly enjoy helping people. If you get hurt in an accident, please feel free to call me. I'd love the opportunity to try to help you. The Dozier Law Firm. We're here in your time.
Connecting the community through gospel. The new 980 AM WDDO, Perry, Macon.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of the Glory 980 AM, the Glory Media Group, LLC, WDDO AM, its staff, management, or advertisers, but are the views and opinions of the participants of the broadcast.
Right.
Well, we are here with another edition of Ask Elaine. You can call in at 478-250-1444. Or you can go on WDDO Live and watch us on Facebook. Today we have with us Miss Kimberly Carter. Kim, it's good to see you.
It's great to see you.
Tell me what are the things we're talking about today, Kim?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so we are going to talk about the verdict in Minneapolis with the Derek Chauvin case. We can talk about the situation with Mariah Bryant over in Columbus, Ohio, that recent shooting. We need to talk about what's going on with Black women in Congress and the disrespect with Jim Jordan and that crew. I think we should talk a little bit about SB 202 and corporate accountability. And you know, I have all kinds of questions that I love to ask you about how to fix these folks. So, I mean, there is so much that we can talk about, especially as it relates to our community here in this community, the state, and the nation at large.
Well, you know, we can talk about the verdict with Chauvin in Minnesota. I was surprised at the verdict. They convicted him on all three charges.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, while that trial is going on 10 miles away, Dante Wright
Yes.
was shot.
Ah, sorry to forget about that. Absolutely.
And we saw the film. So people are telling us don't believe our eyes, but when we see it. And of course, the officer that did the shooting said she thought she was using her taser, and usually police officers have the gun on one side and a taser on the other side, and a taser doesn't look like a gun.
Well, and can we say this?
Yeah.
The 26-year veteran police officer who also trains other officers said that she mistakenly used her taser instead of her gun.
And when I look at the film, it looked like to me her partner almost got shot because he was handcuffing the gentleman in the car.
Exactly.
And
let's not forget, that's driving with an air freshener.
Yeah.
Remember now, he was pulled over about an air freshener, and then later the tag, so which is it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it seemed to me that they had enough officers to apprehend him without shooting him or tasing.
Yes.
And so that's going to be one big question that the officer resigned. I think the police chief resigned also.
Yes.
And so now that is up for discussion, as well as the shooting in Columbus, Ohio. I've still been trying to watch the so-called video that they released.
Right.
And one of the things is that they were called to the scene because of a fight with a teenager.
Right.
And she pulled a knife, and supposedly they told her to drop the knife. She didn't do it. And so they shot her. Now, based on the rules and the laws, a police officer has the right to protect himself or a third party who might be injured by the doings of someone else. That remains to be seen, and I would assume they're going to have a total investigation, but I hope the investigation is done by an outside source rather than the Columbus, Ohio police.
Well, on my way here, I did listen and watch the press conference, and the mayor was there. Columbus, Ohio mayor. He's a Democrat. The police chief was there, and this brother who is a part of the a independent criminal investigation unit that they have. And so the press began to ask questions, and of all of the questions that the press, were asking, I think the most important thing that I learned today about policing was the question was, why did he have to shoot her 4 times in the chest area? Why don't they just, because he was saying that after talking to the community, that the community wanted to know, why can't y'all just shoot people in the leg? Why can't y'all just shoot people in the arm? Why you gotta, 4 shots to the chest? And the chief said, we train in situations where others could be endangered. We train to shoot in the centermost mass points. He was short of saying we shoot to kill, but he said we shoot in the center, in the centermost mass points. And so I think that all of the conversation that you and I are having and that the nation is having, that the main answer to all of this is we got to reimagine policing in this country. Something has got to change.
Well,
I mean, I'm not saying that we don't need to work on community. I'm not saying we don't need to work on our young people. Because I know you've been in the school system. I've been in the school system. First thing they told me before I could even get my classroom assignment was don't break up girl fights or you'll be more hurt than the girls, right? But in light of all of that, though, we are still talking about policing in this country.
There's no question about it. If you look at the Aubrey situation in South Georgia, where he was shot evidently because somebody had an innermost feeling that they were just going to shoot a black person.
Ahmaud down here in Brunswick, yes. Right. Mm-hmm.
And of course, the GBI got involved and found out that the guy who did the filming was involved in it also.
Absolutely.
And my understanding is he talked to a lawyer, and the lawyer told him he needed to release the film to let him know that he was not part of shooting Aubrey.
Right.
But
right.
The investigation showed you were part of this, all of it, because you were doing the filming.
Absolutely.
And so we have these cases where police officers are killing black folk.
Black folk. Let's be very clear.
Folks of color.
Black folk. That's right. And brown folk too now.
Yeah, and folks of color. And of course, I saw the mother of the guy who was killed in New York with the chokehold.
Eric Garner.
Yeah.
Yes.
His mother was on.
Gwen.
Yeah.
Gwen.
And so we are talking about discussions of black folks and folks of color being killed by the police. Is there another way? Is there another way? I used to remember that the police officers used to have a big belly stick that used to be on the side. And of course, I would think that if you had one of those, that you could defend yourself against a knife.
Mm-hmm.
And whether or not the officers them had enough time to go in and separate and use a belly club rather than deadly force.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the other thing is, we've also got to teach our young folks about violence among us, because this was a 911 call. And I heard the 911 call with the screaming on, talking about they were fighting and everything. And I've still not seen the video. I saw some of it, but it wasn't clear to me what I was looking at.
Right.
So they released the video immediately, trying to quell the fears of the black community and the protesters. But at the same time, we've got a young lady that is now dead. That's a teenager.
16-year-old girl. 16-year-old girl.
And of course, you had the kid in Chicago. He was 13.
Yeah, that's right.
And the film I saw, he had his hands
Toledo.
up.
That was Adam Toledo.
Yeah. He had his hands up.
That's right.
The film I saw.
And they still, and I didn't see a gun. So, right. And that's what we're saying about this is an issue of brown and black folk. And what I want people to understand, I know when I found out about what happened with Micaiah and, it sort of hit Twitter and then it hit Black Twitter. I, of course, the first details that I saw was that she called the 911 about these girls in the yard wanting to fight her and jump on her and all this. Then there was another story that actually the grandmother called because she was actually out in the yard engaging. So there are a lot of details that we don't know about this situation, but this is the detail that I do know. That Kyle Rittenhouse, a 17-year-old white boy, was up there walking around the streets in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, with an AR on him, an active AR, with rounds on him and was able to be apprehended, arrested, and handcuffed without a hair being moved from his head. So regardless of what these circumstances are, how these folks try to tell us what the police procedures are, what our question is still is, why is it always different when it comes to Black and brown bodies? Now, Steve Coakley says that when your skin color is a weapon, you will always be armed. Now, that's what Steve Coakley said about Black folk. When your skin color is a weapon, you ain't never unarmed. So there is a perception and a change that needs to happen. Now, I will say this, my state senator, I'll say this, Senator Lucas, I never in my deepest imagination did I imagine that Joe Biden would be the president that he is becoming on a daily basis.
There's no question.
And he is the right president for this time. I'll go on record saying it, and it is just the truth of the matter.
And Kimberly, I would totally agree with you. You're listening to Ask Elaine, 478-250-1444.
I got to make sure I share it out. I forgot to let the people know I'm hanging over here with my favorite state senator.
Yes, 478-250-1444. WDDO, Glory.
Oh, I forgot we got a little backfeed. Okay.
9:80 a.m. We're talking about policing, and especially policing when it comes to Black folks and folks of color. I remember seeing the film where the guy went into, the store and shot the folks, and then they had him. He had been shot in the leg, and they apprehended him, and they had him, and he was hopping, but he wasn't dead.
Yeah, absolutely. We went and got Burger King for Dylan Roof,
right?
Who, when we apprehended him, knew that he was armed and dangerous and had just murdered 9 Black folk.
Right.
But we were concerned if he was hungry.
Yeah. Well, you know, we are living in changing times, and I contribute part of this attitude to the former President Donald Trump.
Absolutely.
I think he did more to incite folks.
I agree. And
bring out the innermost worst feeling of folks who are white.
Yes. And we can go another further. As Black folk in Black bodies on a space that was stolen people, stolen people brought over on stolen land, we understand the dynamics of America more than anyone, right? We understand it more than anyone. So we're not saying that, and we want our audience to understand, we're not saying that Donald Trump created racism.
No,
we're not saying that Donald Trump created white supremacy.
Right.
What we are saying is that his rhetoric, his policies, and his gang of deplorables did everything possible to unhinge all of the policies that were protecting us from this foolishness, and to unleash those folk who were left in their covens and little silos. He unleashed all of them and gave them permission to be openly, outwardly white supremacist and white nationalist.
Well, but there's no question about it. He incited the riot at the Capitol.
He did.
When they were talking about counting the electoral votes to decide who the president is.
That's right. But keep in mind, let's keep in mind, these same people, and I want our audience to hear this, the exact same people who would not vote to impeach this president for the second time for inciting this riot want to expel and censure our dear sister, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, claiming that she was inciting violence and a riot up in Minneapolis. These are the same people. And that is why we tell y'all, don't watch what they are. What is it Rachel Maddow say every night? Don't watch what they say. Watch what they do. Yeah.
There's no question about it. Remember, this is Ask Elaine.
This is Ask Elaine.
And you can call us at 478-250-1444. And this is Senator David Lucas with Sister Kimberly Carter.
Yes, sir. Making boy and making bread.
Ain't no question about it. A lot of you might remember her daddy, Jesse Carter.
Absolutely. We speak his name every day in my household.
Yeah. Yes.
I miss my daddy. And every day when all of this has happened, even when Donald Trump was elected, some of the comfort I got was imagining what my daddy would be cussing and saying. Imagining what my dad would be saying. And oftentimes when I get to sit in some of these rooms and in some of these tables, I enjoy also being able to just think about what some people know, what would Jesus do? I be doing what would Jesse do? That's my WWJT.
Well, it's becoming a difficult situation. I mean,
it is.
We had one situation here when we had the killing of Junebug at the Kroger.
Absolutely.
And Junebug was doing nothing but panhandling.
Yes.
And was shot to death in the parking lot of Kroger.
Absolutely.
And the officer that did it suffered no consequences.
None.
Investigation by the folks.
Internal affairs.
And the DA was David Cook, who exonerated the police officer as to the killing of Junebug.
Right.
So we have to deal with what is going on with us right now.
Yes.
And what's going on with us right now is that what Dr. King and Joe Lowry and John Lewis talked about is registering and voting and voicing your opinion.
Yes.
And somehow in this election, a whole lot of us got out and voiced our opinion about the situation in the United States and the presidency.
Yes.
And what Republicans didn't like was the results.
No.
We ended up with two senators, Reverend Warnock, who's the first since Reconstruction.
That's right. He'll be back here, I think next week or in the next couple of weeks. He'll be back in Macon.
And Senator John Ossoff.
Yes. Yeah.
And because those two senators were elected, was the reason that we got the so-called stimulus package passed by the president.
And can I say this, State Senator, and I want to also, I want our listening audience to understand that part of my understanding of how policy truly impacts Black people is because of you and the late Senator Robert Brown. The two of you are probably have always been the foremost thought leaders on being able to understand policy, talk about policy, and make it relevant to our communities. What is unfortunate that we have right now down there across the street from Rosa Parks Square is an administration that does not understand policy. And especially does not understand policy that impacts the community. Because I did, talk to some of John's folks after they visited here. And, when people are looking for, tell us what the top issues are in your community, give us the one pager, tell us what policies, what are the things that we're enacting, we're going to deliver this much to the community, is that enough, and da-da-da-da. And when you have blank stares, and frivolity, and people's only talking point is about blight.
Right.
Our people need to understand Blight is not a policy. Blight removal is not policy. It's operations.
Right.
Policy was making sure that we had an OLOST that would give us a sustainable bottom line so that we could create initiatives, programming, and operations to sustain and make this community better.
Well, the outlaws, the OLAWs, I voted against coming back to Macon. It lost by.
No, I'm saying your original though.
Yeah.
I'm saying the original that you talked to us about is not what happened, is what I need people to understand.
No, it's not. I call him a real estate mongrel and a farmer who talked about the OLAWs would cost folks in Crawford County money. But they were at 8 pennies already. They passed the T-Splot. So when I go to Crawford County and go hunt and stop at the convenience store, stop at the gas station, I'm paying that extra penny. But he was concerned about.
And whose economy impacts whom more? Does Macon having a great economy help Crawford County?
There's no question
about it. Or does Crawford County having a great economy impact Macon? I mean, let's be real, right?
Well, there's no question about it. And these two Republicans went along with changing it. And I would have to say then the other, Senator Kennedy, went along and passed it. And then there were folks from Macon who came up the day of when the bill came up, asking folks to support the OLAWs. And even Miss Parrish came over to talk to my colleagues about them voting with everybody. My colleagues said, no, we're going to be with Senator Lucas on this one. And I explained what happened.
And then let me just say this, because I understand how jurisdictional boundaries are written.
Yeah.
I don't think that district touches Crawford County, Ms. Parris's district.
No.
Okay, I'm just checking.
Yeah, and so my problem was that I wanted the county to have a surplus.
Absolutely.
And which meant that if the citizens passed the OLAWs, it would take almost 3 years before you get to where you roll back taxes. In other words, between the tax assessor's office assessing the property and then determining how much each person gets who owns property as far as property relief.
Right.
And what they passed was put a instant 5 meal. A meal in Bibb County is $4.28 million. So if the sales tax brings in roughly $30 or $29 million, right at $21 million the second year would go to a rollback of taxes. And then the third year, it's 100%. And what I wanted to do was try to make sure that they had enough money to do these things without having to go and do or ask for a millage rate increase, which they did 2 times.
Right.
You know, when they told everybody that taxes wouldn't be going up and those kind of things. So I think that when you talk about policy, that is setting policy that will benefit folks, and then you look at the folks who you
are benefiting.
Yeah,
that's right.
Who you benefit, and the folks who you elected to distribute those monies equally in this community.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It is so, and it is just so absolutely critical that as we move into, registering more voters, and I mean, it's great. I'm a campaign person too, so I love register. I'm a integrated civic engagement person. So voter registration is my love language. Voter mobilization is my love language. But what our people have to understand is that we have to vote in every election, every time, and that policy and truly understanding whose team someone is playing for. Not what they're saying on their commercial, not what's on the mailer coming to your doorstep, but whose team are they playing on? And it's not difficult, like you're saying about this real estate mogul. It's not difficult to understand who people lean to. It don't take long.
No,
You don't have to do a whole lot of power mapping. You can tell. And I'm so glad that you said that, because so often the other team likes to say all Democrats want to do is tax and spend. But here you are, a lifelong Democrat, talking about policy and government activity that reduces taxes or causes us not to raise raise a millage rate. But I think that there are just so many things, and I know we got off topic just a little bit, but I just wanted to come back to that, because I called in when you were talking about it, and our people need to understand, that laws are happening. I mean, that the work that impacts your life every day doesn't happen in a silo. It happens at your local level,
right.
downtown. Now that we are consolidated, one time, we'd have it happened at City Hall, then it happened at the county. Now that's all a mashup. So everything happens, for our communities there. Then you have a state body. That's why we elected Senator Lucas, who are up there making laws that impact you, passing budgets that impact you, even your education budgets and your QBE formulas and all of that, your streets and roads, all these things. And then we have the federal, right, all the way up in DC, that are passing these laws and things of that nature. So let me ask you this: HR 1, HR 4, George Floyd Act, all been passed by Congress, all bold things that we need to really change the trajectory of this nation. Even down to the policing, because everything we've talked about, the George Floyd Act definitely addresses, the qualified immunity is addressed. What a lot of people don't know is bad cops, like this Chaffin guy, all these folk, they get fired one place, go to two other places,
And go to
still
work.
do the same thing and go to work, because there is no registry. There's a national registry, there's a state registry of cops who have problems and things of that nature. What Merrick Garland announced today, that they're going to be doing a plan and practice assessment. I can't remember, but they're going to be going in, saying what's going on in Minneapolis, right? So, what are our possibilities? We're dealing with a short timeline. We either deal with the filibuster, reconciliation, or find some kind of way to make sure Joe Manchin stay home. I mean, what are we going to do?
Well, he's a Democrat out of West Virginia, and they keep saying that it's so close that he could win as a Republican. Well, let me say this. First of all, I think they need to get rid of the filibuster. They didn't have a problem getting rid of it for Donald Trump to make these appointments.
Well, exactly.
And so now Republicans are talking about, oh no, we can't do that. But Mitch McConnell got rid of it.
Yeah.
When you dealt with the courts, the federal courts.
Right.
These kinds of things are happening to us because, especially what we did this year in electing Joe Biden.
Yes.
Even the lieutenant governor of the state of Georgia went on MSNBC and said those bills will pass because of the big lie. Now, that means that he's not in favor with the Republican Party anymore in Georgia. He decided that he won't run again for lieutenant governor. And
won't run again or won't win again?
Won't run again.
Well, I have my own opinion.
Yeah. I think we all have opinions, but that's just like they say. It's like maximum glutamate. Everybody got that.
No. I'm just saying he talking about won't run again. I'm talking about won't win again.
Yeah. Well, we what we've got to do is get out and fight. And what Senate Bill 202 did was, number one, they combined everything, the so-called absentee ballot that Senator Larry Walker put in, that led the fight on the floor of the Senate.
Right.
That was the day that I read in the Riot Act and talk about the election of 1876. And we going back again. That was rolled into 202. Now, what 202 does, number one, it takes the power away from the Secretary of State. Now, he held the election. He sent out the absentee ballots, and he counted 3 times on the president and said there were no fraudulent activities during the election, that the election was fair. And guess what? Donald Trump said, and he called the Secretary of State, find me 11,000 votes. That's what you do. And of course, the Secretary of State was smart enough to record it because Donald Trump would have lied on him too. But he couldn't lie because he had his voice on there telling him to find the votes. So we are dealing with what I call a power grab. Folks try to stay in power.
Yes.
And so they want to dictate to the local election boards. And if they don't do what they want to do, they can reappoint them. They take all the power away from the Secretary of State.
And don't forget that, and even though those things are definitely a major concern, but what a lot of you may not know is in the process of all of these recounts, we were dealing with so many new organizations from the QAnon people, from the GOP side, who were trying to come challenge voter rolls, challenge people's votes, challenge their provisionals and things. These are regular everyday citizens coming to challenge your vote, right? Or your ability to vote. And so they have actually written that. They have actually codified that practice into 202. So people can come and challenge individual people, voters' votes under this bill. And so you're right. Raffensperger decided he was going to cover himself, record it, because here's the other thing that Raffensperger didn't know either, because he didn't know or doesn't know who is out there that's really for him or against him.
Right.
So if those 11,000 or whatever, had a, hey, Michelle Watley, I'm so glad you're joined on here. This sister is over the Shirley Chisholm Institute. She has a podcast. She's a political strategist. She does all kinds of amazing stuff all over the nation with recruiting, running some of the baddest Black progressives in the nation. And she done popped in here to hear me hang out with you today, State Senator. She's up at Michelle. I know you're in the Midwest. Drop in there what part of the Midwest you're in. And so Raffensperger was still trying to cover, right? Because he doesn't know who's for him or against him, even around him. Right. So in case those 11,000 popped up, he definitely wanted on record, I didn't do it, right? Or I said I didn't do it. So that was the first play. So then when we go back to why this orange warlock is so frustrated and so upset with Brian Kemp, he's mad at Brian Kemp because he's saying, what you did for yourself against Stacey Abrams, you won't do for me?
Yeah.
No, I'm serious. That's why he's so mad at him.
Yeah.
Because he literally understands what we know, that this man was the sitting Secretary of State running for governor and had his fingers on every button, right? And that when he did that last scrape of 55,000 voters, the majority of them being Black and brown folk here in the state of Georgia, he knew exactly what that outcome was going to deliver. Now, one thing I'll give to Speaker Ralston is this. Every now and then, my dad used to say a broke clock be right twice a day. He wakes up on a few days with his old broke clock self being correct. He has been warning his party about these demographic shifts coming to Georgia. He has been warning them about these demographic shifts. They have not been listening. And the other thing that's hitting them too is the blackening, the browning of this state. The blue shifts in the Black Belt. They never imagined that they would see some of these counties down in South Georgia, down in that Black Belt, turning up blue. Never imagined that Black folk would beat their turnout for a runoff against a general. So those things are frightening for them. because what they were able to see is that the playbook that they have been running, that the plays that they have been running can be counterplayed.
In other words, you got a good defense.
Absolutely. and so even though you hear State Senator and I talking about these, these bills, and we know there are a lot of lawsuits, we're still pressing these corporations who are good with black dollars but ain't worried about black votes. We're still pressing them to be accountable, to show up, be on our side, on the side of democracy, because democracy is better for business than this foolishness. But what we do know is that whatever they throw at us, because of the blood coursing through our veins, because of the ancestors on whose shoulders we stand over and look over the horizon, because of that, we will be victorious.
Listen, you're listening to Elaine, 478-250-1444.
Call us, y'all. Call us.
Y'all call in. We giving out some good, sure enough, good information.
Yeah, we speaking truth to power. Sure enough, truth is power. You're looking at two black folk right here that ain't scared of nobody.
Yeah. I look at, once in every blue moon, someone particular shows up. You talk about A. Philip Randolph.
Yes.
Who talked about civil rights and economics.
Yes.
He dealt with the black porters on the train.
Yes. My grandfather was a Pullman porter, great grandfather.
And then, of course, he talked about economics, that you can't have anything if you got no money. It's me.
And you know what my daddy said? You can't help the poor if you are one.
That's absolutely correct. But what I'm looking at is someone that comes along once in every blue moon that challenges the system.
Yes.
That works at changing the system.
Yes.
And I look at A. Philip Randolph, Martin Luther King, Joe Lowry, Maynard Jackson, John
Call the roll.
John Lewis. And I look at all of them being wrapped up in one. And the one I'm talking about is Stacey Abrams, a black female who challenged the system, who put Fair Fight together, who went out and registered folks, new voters.
That's right.
Registered plenty of black voters.
That's right.
And then got them to turn out in this election.
Right.
So I think we have to give a great deal of credit to her,
well, she is my governor. I don't know who y'all's governor is, but she is my governor.
Well, she hadn't announced you.
She's still my governor. She is my governor. Yeah. And for these past 4 years, Barack Obama was still my president until we just till further notice. Yeah. And guess what? Jack Ellis is still my mayor of Macon until further notice. So I don't mind letting the people know where I stand. So that's where I am on all of that. And so the people can be very clear. Yeah. And I'm so happy now I don't have to, still be claiming Max Cleland and Sam Nunn after them last disasters. So we have John and Raphael. And speaking of Leader Abrams, yesterday when she testified, U.S. Senate Judicial Committee, they testified. Now listen, let me tell you how bad Dick Durbin is. The name of the committee was Jim Crow 2021. And they were so bad. First thing Grassley says is, I don't like the name of this committee hearing, right? It was so hilarious because, the racists don't like being called racist, right. Okay? So, so they had Gwen Ifill, the amazing Gwen Ifill. I'm sorry, I'm talking about Gwen. Bless your heart, Gwen. We speak your name. We're talking about your dear sister, Sherilyn Ifill, the lead executive director of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. They had Senator Raphael Warnock. He was one of the witnesses. Leader Abrams, Carol Anderson, who wrote the book White Rage and is a professor up at Emory University. And then my other brother, I can't remember his name, but he is the foremost authority on, he wrote Slavery by Another Name. He does a lot of research into how Jim Crow has manifested itself, how it has never left, right? But guess who all the questions were to? Lita Abrams. And I'm talking about Kennedy, Cornyn, Cotton, all of them. We're trying to take a chunk out of her, get their GOP hot points in,
Right.
Trying to blame her about the MLB, baseball, right, all this kind of thing. But what I love about Lita Abrams is you would think that she is just magical because she has an answer for every question. You would have thought that she had their questions before she got there, but she had an answer for every question. And just like you said, they are so terrified of who she is, what she stands for, what she is able to do. And the other thing that annoys me to no end, they always worried about her bag. Oh, they just use buzz terms to raise money. Nobody talks about this grifting that Donald Trump is doing, literally bankrupting the GOP, right? Nobody talks about if he could put Make America Great on toilet paper, he would be selling that for profit. But you let a black person make more than $1, and all of a sudden, that is the main conversation. My dad used to tell me they'd rather a monkey have a diamond ring than a black man have anything. And so we have to understand that is the mindset that these people have. So we have to be in spaces, at tables, always centering black folk, brown folk, impoverished folk. We have to be at the table because they don't want us at the table, and they don't want to share power, and they definitely don't want to share wealth.
There is no question about it. I mean, when you look at all of these things, and that's one of the things that A. Philip Randolph talked about. He talked about justice, but he also talked about economics.
Economic justice, definitely.
When back in the 30s, when he was coming up and talking, somebody said that he was the most scariest Negro in the United States. And if you remember, when you had these defense contractors and blacks were working for these companies, he threatened Roosevelt to march on Washington.
Right.
And they changed the way that they were paying blacks in the defense industry.
That's right.
And then, of course, with Truman, he threatened again to march on Washington to integrate the armed services.
That's right. Absolutely.
And so that's the reason they said that he was the most scariest Negro.
Yes.
In the country. But
and our children don't know enough about it.
Yeah. Well, they don't teach it in school.
Yeah.
Unless you go to college and you take one of those courses, political science, and you have to read all of these things. And that's the reason I said it. Somehow, someone comes along every now and then.
Yes.
And that's someone right now stays safe.
I agree. But speaking of what's being taught in schools, remember the Sister Nicole Hannah-Jones comes out with the 1619 Project. That's a part of the New York Times, and just really digging very deeply into this stain on America called slavery, our chattel slavery. And so even Donald Trump, remember, stands up to do an executive order for that not to be taught in schools.
Right.
So we have to understand, just how very detrimental this guy was, how far he tried to set the clock back on our progress, and why every election. I saw someone here, Maria Bryant, who we are always grateful for the work she does in our community and within AACP, is reminding us about voting every up and down the ballot, every election, every time. I'm still a little salty because on that runoff ballot, we had 2 black men and a Jewish man. We had Raphael Warnock to complete the expired term of Isaacson. We had John Ossoff to replace David Perdue for a full 6 years because Raphael only has 2. He runs next year. And then we had a Public Service Commission runoff where we had Daniel Blackman against Bubba McDonald. And like I'm trying to tell Blackman, I don't know about how y'all are living, but out of them 3 people, I want the man that's dealing with my light bill to get in. And so sometimes, but we have not done a good enough job talking about power to our people, talking about how the Public Service Commissioner is sitting on there, voting on these different rates from all of these utility companies, and how the other boys are in the pocket of the Southern Company and in the pocket of the gas companies and all this kind of thing. And so, we have Public Service Commissioners that will be on the ballot next year. We have 4 or 5, and they do odd or even. That office Public Service Commissioner will be back on the ballot. And we've been a little light on these light bills because of COVID, and because we haven't been putting so much pressure on the ozone layer is gone. We haven't been putting so much pressure on the environment. So we didn't use as much AC last year as we did this year. It just really wasn't as hot. And even if it was, we were in the house anyway, right? Because of the pandemic. So now, how are they going to recoup those profits that they've been losing? Right. So we have to make sure that in 2022, while we will be happy about the top of the ticket and labor commissioners and all that, that we really have to make sure that people understand that Public Service Commissioner position and role, and that we elect some good people there.
And you know what? While you talk about that, the labor commissions, I've gotten more calls from folks who, for the last year and a half, have not got their unemployment.
The Republicans are sick of Mark Butler.
Well, there's no question about it. We passed the bill, and I was signed in on the bill to put somebody in place that would have the same power as the labor commission to get these claims settled. Yeah. Because every time I turn around, I'm getting calls at 9, 10 o'clock at night. Man, I've been trying to get my unemployment. I can't do it.
Right. Oh, but guess who else was on the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee hearing yesterday?
Who was that?
Jan Jones. Can you believe it? I was looking like, what? They done brought the Ava Braun of Georgia up here. So she's on there. You know how she's so calm and talks and So she's on there giving all of the high points of 202, because she's the spin doctor for them.
Well, listen,
and she's not a bad spin doctor. Now I'll give her that.
Yeah, first of all, she needs a doctor. He
said that, y'all. I didn't this time. He said it. I didn't.
You can't spin 202 any other way than voter suppression.
But she's been spinning it. She's been spinning it.
Yeah. And one of the things about it, we're in court now, fighting through it, because when they had the private ceremony, and the representative knocking on the door and got locked up knocking on the door.
Well, can we add a little bit more to who Park Cannon is?
Yeah.
Park Cannon is the secretary of the caucus.
Yeah. And
so she has always recorded the minutes of the signing.
Right.
Yeah. So people really need to understand.
Yeah, but just like I said, she got locked up and they exonerated of all the charges.
Right.
Because number one, they were talking about a
well, they had 2 felonies on her.
They were, but they were rather than being a misdemeanor, they put 2 felonies on her, obstruction. And
absolutely,
that kind of
absolutely.
And I'm familiar with that because I had to beat a case twice for felony obstruction. Because I stopped to see about a kid who the police had pulled over in the alley.
Wow.
And I happened to know, when I recognized the car, I passed by, I recognized the kid. I said, well, let me stop and see what's going on. Ain't no use for me going to the grocery store. And something happened to this kid, and I had the opportunity to stop there and sit. And I got locked up.
Well, let me tell you, it is so interesting that you mentioned that, because in the past year, and definitely with the past person that occupied the Oval Office, we have seen an escalation of police encounters with state legislators across the nation, and specifically very much with Black women legislators. It's happened in Virginia, North Carolina, up in Ohio. We've had two here with McKeema and Park. So, so this escalation, has been happening. So what happened to you? We even remember an incident, and I'm not, outing anybody. This is in all the papers. But remember, we literally had a sitting judge who couldn't stay sober to even go to his own child's soccer game. But we heard less about his indiscretions as we did about a Black commissioner's.
Yeah.
So a Black commissioner who
Yeah.
they never proved anything with the breathalyzer, claimed he was making a rolling stop, couldn't prove that with the cameras, all this. So these are intentional things. These folk know who y'all are, right?
There's no question about
Yeah, they know who y'all are. It's not like it's a mistake. It's a case of mistaken, of mistaken identity. So I wanted to read something to you, because I just had to get your opinion on this. This is from one of your former colleagues. Schools and teachers, stop demonizing white children for being white. Corporate companies like Coca-Cola, stop telling your white employees to be less white. You don't tell Black Lives Matter to be less Black. And that's from former Representative Vernon Jones, who is currently running for governor here in the state of Georgia. My question to you is: so we have Vernon Jones, who is no longer a Democrat, but a Black Republican man. We have Kelvin King, who is originally from Macon, Georgia, who lives up in St. Johns Creek, who has announced that he is running for U.S. Senate. We still have Herschel Walker, that the President Trump wants to move from Texas to come here and run for U.S. Senate. And then, last but not certainly least, Judge T.K. Hudson down in Swainsboro, Georgia. Governor Kemp's buddy has announced that he's going to run for Secretary of State. We know that in this 2020 general election, we saw a 10 to 15% increase in Black male support of Donald Trump, of the Republican ticket. What do you think about that as a Black man? What do you think about seeing this direct recruitment of Black men for the statewide GOP ticket?
that is to split up the vote, number one. And then when you talk about these blacks who are talking about running, what has been the policy of the Republican Party? You got to remember that blacks used to be more Republican than Democrat.
Absolutely.
And they decided to throw the blacks out the Republican Party. They didn't want them to have anything to do with the administration of the Republican Party. That's how blacks ended up with the Democratic Party.
And the Southern strategy.
Yeah. But, it is what it is. And as one said, if you see it with your eyes, don't try to lie to me and tell me what happened. I just saw what happened. Like, we saw Dante Wright get shot in his car. And the officer was putting the handcuffs on him, and she stuck the gun right in there and shot him. We understand that. We saw that. The same thing with Chauvin on Florida. We actually saw it. And it was a black female that had enough courage to sit there and say, y'all doing him wrong, and then let him up. They film it all. But had you not had that film, then they would tell us. And then, of course, the young lady, my understanding is she told them to turn off their body cams after she had shot the boy. So you couldn't see anything else. So we have all these things going on in our community. But we also need to tell and teach our kids responsibility. We need to teach them about these little gangs and these turf wars they're having. And when they get mad, they take out a gun to shoot. when they take out a gun. Young folk, they take out a gun and shoot. Police are more scared of a young black man than they are of older folk, because they take out guns and shoot. They answer their argument with guns.
But I will say this: what we don't talk about enough in the 2A, our Second Amendment rights to bear arms, what we don't talk about enough, because first of all, this idea that somebody coming out there by the house taking their guns, that ain't never happening. It never, ever happened. Number one, it's not going to happen, because we just found out that we are 2-1. There are more guns. 2 times the population of the United States, so it's 325 million of us. Multiply that by 2, that's the number of guns in this country. But we still have to talk about it. I know that we are concerned about our children and gun violence, but I think that there are some other sides. We need to talk about the availability of guns to these kids. And that is a serious thing that we need to talk about. We need to talk about these homemade guns that are out here. I mean, I'm just saying, when you talk about bump stock.
We call it the zip gun.
We need to talk about this. Some of these we still have gun show loopholes. Here in the state of Georgia, you can get a gun faster than you can register to vote and get your voter registration. So there are things. There are so many dynamics to this, that we have to talk about. And unlike any other country in the world, we are the only nation with a true gun culture. Well, Japan has only had, I think Japan had 20 murders by gunshot in a whole year. The UK only 6. So I'm saying in these other industrialized nations, they don't have 200,000 people to die by gun violence like we have here in this country. Yeah. Oh, is that our music? Look, we have talked to the show is out.
This has been Ask Elaine with Senator David Lucas and Miss Kimberly Carter.
This has been a ball.
Well,
I've had a great time.
We have to talk about what's going on and what's relevant to our community. The last thing I want to say, get your COVID shot.
Yes.
Don't take a chance on your life. What it will stop you from having those real problems with your lungs.
That's right. And can I say something else?
Go ahead, hurry up.
I don't know what's in Advil, and I'll take an Advil in a minute. So stop telling me y'all don't know what's in the vaccine. And when y'all tell me what's in the Advil, I'll tell you what's in the vaccine. Save your life. Take the vaccine.
This has been Ask Elaine with Senator David Lucas and
Kimberly Carter.
Sister Kimberly Carter. And guess what? We'd like to say for you to listen to another edition of Ask Elaine.
The winningest black woman in Georgia.
Good day.
Good day.
Connecting the community through gospel. The new 980 AM WDDO Perry Macon.
I see a new day dawning. I see a new day dawning. I believe it's almost here. I believe new song for you. Come on, help me say it. I see a new day dawning. I see a new day dawning. I believe it's almost here. I believe it's almost here. Lord, we are standing in your presence. Lord, we are waiting patiently. Our hearts hearts are ready to receive all of the blessings that you have for me. Open up the floodgates. 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 Send your rain. Your rain. Come on, clap your hands, everybody. Let me hear you make some noise out there. Let's go higher here.